broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, and welcome back to a new episode of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And what an absolute crazy game yesterday was. A game that had so many mixed emotions, and if there was a game that described our season best, it was yesterday's game. A season of two halves, a game of two halves really. Well, a game of 30 minutes of horrendous play from Arsenal and then 70 minutes of great play. It's a difficult one for me to analyse because as a fan watching the game, I think you're just going through so many emotions that it's very difficult to analyse it. So I'm going to try it the best I can because there was just so much going on in the game. There is so much to talk about. And obviously then we'll get on to your questions and everything as well. But I guess let's start with the easy thing, the one that we do every episode. And we start with the lineup. And Bernardo started in goal, as per usual. Callum Chambers was at right backs, which was a surprise. He obviously came in against Burnley for his height, but he came in here, and we will get on to Chambers later because he had a really good performance here. Luiz was partnered by Pablo Mari at centre-back, so no Gabriel for this game. Kieran Tierney at left-back, obviously. Partey and Xhaka in midfield, which was expected, really. And then the front four was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka and Alexandre Lacazette. So firstly, I was a bit surprised that Aubameyang was back on the wing. Obviously, this is the first game in a long time where Aubameyang has been played on the wing. And I was also surprised Lacazette started this game as well. So not only was the Callum Chambers selection a surprising one, the Aubameyang one with Lacazette paired was a bit of an odd one as well. Now, I mentioned in general how badly we played in the first 30 minutes, and there was no exception here. We were awful in the first 30 minutes. West Ham pressed us well. They weren't like pure like Jurgen Klopp pressing teams. They were just intelligent with their press. We couldn't really handle them. We weren't passing well. We were very sloppy. And they scored within 20 minutes. And it was Jesse Lingard, who obviously has a great record against us and he loves scoring against us. It was a great finish, to be fair. It was a knockdown from Antonio and Lingard drills it into the top corner. It was a very good finish. And fine, that can happen. But after the start that we had, it was very, very poor and we weren't controlling them at all. We just didn't have any of the ball. We weren't progressing the ball well forward. What contributed to this, and it happened, I think after the first goal, I'm not sure if it happened after the second goal, I think it was after the first goal, was that we were playing Aubameyang and Saka on different sides. So Saka couldn't obviously play on the left, but we were playing Aubameyang on the right as well. I have no idea why, and I don't think Arteta got asked it, but there was no reason why that we needed to do this. I didn't understand it. Maybe he was worried about Kufau at right back, so he wanted Saka to be able to track him. But I just didn't understand why Aubameyang was on the right wing. He's not a winger. He hasn't been a winger for years. He's a striker, basically. And to be fair, Aubameyang had a very poor game in general. Partly was that selection to put him on the right, but partly was because he was quite poor as well. He wasn't really involved in the game at all. And obviously, when he's not scoring and he's not involved in the game, then it's very difficult to actually like him in the team. So it was a difficult afternoon for him. But we're 1-0 down at this point. We make the switch, so Saka goes back to the right, Aubameyang goes to the left. Fine. You've had an error. But then we go 2-0 behind for the most schoolboy error you will ever see. We can see the free kick. That's fine. That happens. You can see free kicks in football games. But Lingard gets the ball and just passes it very easily across to Jared Bowen, who scores. Now, firstly, everyone being switched off, no one really looking at Bowen or the ball was disgraceful. The only person that was looking at it was David Luiz, and he's too far away from Jared Bowen to really do anything about it. The second thing is Leno's keeping here. It was a very poor save. I know it took a deflection of Pablo Mari, and I understand that, and I didn't really see that the first time I watched it, so credit to people on Twitter who had mentioned this many times, that it did come off Mari. So it makes it a bit more difficult, but I mean, come on, like, it's still not a very difficult shot to save, and he makes it look like the toughest shot in the world, and it was really poor keeping from Leno, so that's not good. He hasn't had a good couple of weeks after the mistake. He put Ceballos in against Olympiacos, and we're 2-0 down at this point, and it was completely deserved. We had been awful and deserved to be behind, and we really didn't do anything, and West Ham deserved their lead. They're a good side these days. I think they've been helped by players like Lingard coming in January and being able to help them with their creativity as well. It's just giving them another dimension. Antonio's always a handful up front. And talking about Antonio, he was heavily involved for the third goal West Ham scored. So it was a looping cross from Kufal. Antonio is too strong for David Luiz. He heads it and it comes off Souček and it goes in for 3-0. And at this point, you're pretty much considering to not watch the game anymore. Just because you're 3-0 down. I know you want to be a fan, but we were just awful and we had deserved to be 3-0 down. And I would have blamed the manager. And ultimately, it was his fault because I don't know why he tinkered with something that had worked so good previously. But at this point, obviously, Aubameyang and Saka had switched wings. And from this point, for the majority of the game, we dominated. We pushed them back very well. And the response, to credit the team, to credit Arteta, was fantastic. And we get one back within 10 minutes of the third goal from West Ham. Again, Odegaard was involved. He passes it down to the right channel to Callum Chambers, who whips in a lovely cross. Great touch from Lacazette and shoots, and it's gone in. It was a deflected shot, so unfortunately it won't count as Lacazette's goal. It came off Souček. But 3-1, a little bit of hope. I think I tweeted at this time, I was like, great, we've got a little bit of hope, but I want a second goal just before half-time and then we can come back into it. That didn't come and we go into half-time, and I mean, it was just such a hectic game. West Ham had 8 shots, we had 6. It was just a mental game. But then we came out in the second half, and the first 15 minutes we were fantastic again. We just kept penning them back. West Ham had no way to get out. We were just very, very good. And we get a second goal. Odegaard, who I'm going to mention later because he deserves praise for his all-round performance. He was absolutely terrific. Again, passing it down the right flank. Chambers again puts in a fantastic cross, and Craig Dawson knocks it in for another own goal. Aubameyang was right behind Dawson, so if he missed it, Aubameyang scores, basically. It's a tap in. And it's 3-2 at this point. And we had started creating good chances in the second half, and we had been doing well. Obviously, there was the Lacazette chance where he chips the keeper, and it gets cleared off the line by Diop. It was a fantastic chance, and obviously we were quite unlucky when that didn't go in. But obviously in the build-up to that goal, Lacazette going through in goal, he gets pulled back by Kufal, and I know if he falls down, it's a penalty. But obviously you've got to credit Lacazette for staying up because he still allows to get the shot. But obviously if it went in, it would be a different story. But it should have been a penalty, really, because he's been impeded. There's no attempt to the ball. If Lacazette falls down, it's a stonewall penalty. So just because he's honest there, it's not a penalty. Also, the pass in the build-up for that, I mean, Callum Chambers, what an absolute gorgeous pass with the outside of his boot as well. It's absolutely gorgeous. So obviously, it's 3-2 at this point. You're hoping that we can push on and get a third very quickly. It takes a bit of time and it takes a few subs. Now, Arteta made a very, very good sub, which I thought was actually quite intelligent. He made 2 subs at the same time, actually. It was Smith Rowe for Xhaka. So Partey was a lone 6 with 2 number 8s in front of him. I thought it was really intelligent to get us more creativity on the pitch without putting Smith Rowe out wide. And then Pepe came on for Saka, so a straight swap there. But West Ham had their chances as well to get a fourth here. There was the run by Declan Rice, which Jamie Carragher goes absolutely crazy over. He's doing the Gary Neville noises, and while he's going up the pitch, it was really poor defended by us, really, because no one really got to him, and it was a good save by Leno. Obviously, you had the Ben Rama run, which gave Antonio a tap in, which he hit the post from, and I mean, it was an extraordinary miss, but I mean, it was fizzed at him, to be fair. So we could have lost this game very easily, but we didn't. We make one final change, Gabriel Martinelli for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. And while Aubameyang is walking off at this point, that's when we get the comeback complete, and that's when we get the third. Again, it's Callum Chambers and Martin Odegaard linking up. It's a cracking ball from Chambers, and Lacazette heads in, and it's 3-0 when Lacazette and Martinelli go celebrate with Aubameyang. It was really nice. Just showing that they're behind their captain, even though he didn't really play well on the day. It was a fantastic goal, and it had been what we deserved from the minute that we went 3-0 down. Obviously, you can't excuse what came back before it, but the response was great, and this was a team earlier in the season which went 1-0 down but couldn't ever get a goal back. We struggled to turn losing positions into winning positions. But we are now starting to do that. We've started to do that a lot recently. We've done that against Benfica. We went 1-0 down. We had to come back and we scored 3. It was fantastic. We've done it against Spurs last weekend. We went 1-0 down. We didn't deserve to be 1-0 down. Got our heads up, won the game. We've done good things recently, and it's just another tick for the squad that they can now come back from losing positions, especially one where you're 3-0 down. I mean, coming back for 3-3 takes a lot, and you have to credit the team for that. That's fair. To be honest, we could have had some other goals as well. I think Pepe had a couple of chances. Pepe was very good when he came on, and I think it comes back to this discussion that Pepe should be starting more. But he came into the side and he's done very well. I think there was one tame shot with his right foot that maybe he could have done better with, which could have been a fourth. And obviously, if we won at this stage, it would have been absolutely incredible. But full-time, 3-3, and I mean, we were quite lucky to be 3-3. Now, West Ham won on XG. I think they were 2.78 to about ours, 1.7. So West Ham did deserve to win on XG, but I think in terms of the performance in general, the first 30 minutes was awful. I blame partly the manager as well as the players. The players acknowledged that it was their fault. They didn't follow the game plan that Mikel Arteta gave them. But I also partly blame the manager as well, just because we've seen Aubameyang on the right multiple times. Even one time under Arteta, and it's never worked. Every single time it's been awful. I think the only time it has worked was a pre-season game against Bayern, and that's because Aubameyang was absolutely on it that day. Every other time he's played on the right, he's looked pretty awful, so don't play him there. Saka on the left is not as effective, I don't think. I don't think he can get into the game and get close to Lacazette, to Odegaard on the day. I don't think he can do that from the left. Now, I think Saka's a pretty cheat code of a player because you can play him in a lot of roles and get a lot out of him. But I just don't think if you've got your best goal scorer effectively on the right and you've got someone who's been able to have late man runs on the left, I just think that tactical configuration wasn't quite correct. But I mean, credit the team. They came back from 3-0 down. It was a really good comeback. It will be one that will be replayed for years, I assume. I know we don't celebrate draws at this football club, but it is a very good comeback. Not obviously on the Reading level of scale. Obviously, we came back from 4-0 down that night, but it was still a very good comeback. Now, in terms of performances, there were three that stood out. Let's talk about the one that hasn't been mentioned as much as the other two, and that's Alexandre Lacazette. I thought he was really good in this game. He kept dropping deep and picking up the ball. West Ham allowed him to do that very easily. Now, I don't think he's incredible at doing it, but he's got a good skill in doing it. And I think the reason why he does it is so he can link up with other players, and then other players can run beyond him, which is what happened here. He would link up with Odegaard regularly, but then you would have Saka running on beyond him, or Pepe when he was on, Aubameyang when he was on, Tierney at left back. These were all things that were happening in the game, and I thought Lacazette done well. Also, his two goals, I know one of them is an own goal, but his two goals were very well taken. The first one, the touch and the spin, is fantastic. I know it takes a deflection, but he deserved the goal for the outstanding control and finish he did. And then the second one, obviously, is a bit of a tap-in, but he rises above and he heads it very well. And for someone who's not the tallest in the air, he's actually very good at his heading ability. He's actually better than what you give him credit for. I think with Lacazette, I think some people do underrate him. I think people just think he's a bum, and I understand that Lacazette hasn't got the best scoring record. He's basically got a goal one every 2 games, or actually maybe one every 3 games, which is probably the same level as Olivier Giroud, and obviously we spent much more money on Lacazette. I don't think Lacazette has been anywhere worth his money. I think he's had one really good season, which was the 18-19 season. I think last season he was a bit interrupted with injury. He got injured very early on, and I think he was struggling to get his match sharpness for the rest of the season. But I think this season he's been ultimately quite good. I think Arteta has liked to use him, and to have someone who can also score 10 plus goals in a team is very good, even if he doesn't play every week. I think Aubameyang has obviously been our top goal scorer. He's got 14 goals this season, but I think Lacazette is right behind him with 13. So he's been fantastic. Obviously, I've seen people saying that we should renew his contract. Please don't do that, Arsenal. We shouldn't be doing that. I like Lacazette. I will miss him when he goes. Anyone that I like, I usually miss when they go, but it doesn't mean that it's a wrong decision. He should probably go at this point, just because I don't think there's any value in keeping him. I mean, this team should be upgrading every single piece in this squad if we can. I don't think anyone is avoidable in terms of an upgrade. He's been a great servant for this club. He will be remembered. Obviously, he won an FA Cup with us. He was heavily involved in it. He was in the starting team. Obviously, if we win the Europa League this season, and touch wood we do, please God, let's win it for once, then he will definitely be remembered very fondly. I think he's one of those players that is more fondly recognised by the match-going fan than the online fan. And that's not to say that any other's opinion is better or worse. We're all Arsenal fans at the end of the day. But I think people that go to the ground appreciate him a bit more than people online. Now, I don't go to the ground as much as other people, so I could be totally wrong. But obviously, I see a lot more on social media, and a lot of people give him pelters. But I thought he was good in this game. Credit him. He probably deserves another start now after his performance against West Ham, which is really encouraging. And obviously, how bad Aubameyang played on the day obviously means that there's got to be a question like if Lacazette should start instead of him. But it's good to have options. Now, obviously, the other two eye-catching performances were from Callum Chambers and from Martin Odegaard. Chambers, I don't think, done incredible in terms of defensively, but his delivery from right back was fantastic. I think he's always been very good with his deliveries from fullback, and I think that's why a lot of managers actually see him as an option at fullback. Some of the passing in this game was fantastic, and obviously you had Jamie Carragher calling him Cafu, and obviously that's a massive compliment. But I think my favourite pass of them all was the pass that he did to Lacazette for the one where he lobbed the keeper and it nearly went in, got cleared off the line. I think that's just an outrageous pass from someone who you don't expect it from. He's done these crosses before, though, in terms of, I remember a goal for Martinelli, one of his first. I think it must have been against Nottingham Forest on his debut, where Chambers fizzes a ball in, and it was really well done. But Chambers always put in a good area, and it's very nice to see. Obviously, he's going to struggle against pace, so he obviously can't play fullback every game. Ultimately, he's a centre-back at heart. But I thought he was fantastic in this game. I mean, credit him. He's done very well, and someone you don't expect to be that good on the day. And then, obviously, the last player I have to talk about is Martin Odegaard. Wow, what a performance. He was outstanding on the day. I think he created 4 chances on the day. It was terrific. I have not seen an Arsenal player produce a performance like that with such high technical ability in a long, long time. Probably since Ozil was in his prime. So probably about 2-3 years now. He was absolutely terrific. His link-up play with the forwards was fantastic. Him dropping to get the ball was great as well. His passing ability was fantastic. He was just intelligent. The pass he produces to Chambers for the second goal was outstanding. It was just a lovely pass. He was involved in all 3 goals, even if he didn't register an assist. It was an outstanding performance, and there's a comp going around on Twitter. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go watch it. It's a joy to watch. I've watched it about 5 times already. The music in that comp is absolutely fantastic. I really recommend it, so go watch it. Just search Odegaard on Twitter. But obviously it begs the question now that Arsenal should do everything they can to sign this player. He's been a revelation since January. He's coming into form now at the right time. It's going to be incredibly difficult to sign him in the summer. Obviously, the potential of no Europe is something that will probably happen. But if we manage to win the Europa League, you'd think that we could sign him. It's a signing that we should do. We've obviously had the emergence of Emile Smith-Rowe, but Odegaard is just as important as well. He looks like a leader on the pitch, not because he shouts, but because of his general play. And I think Arsenal fans are warming to him now and starting to love him. And I think a lot of people will be very disappointed if he leaves. I hope he stays. I hope we somehow do it. It will be difficult. We have a good relationship with Real Madrid, so hopefully that can come into our favour. Madrid also want to buy Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland in the summer, so they're going to need money. So maybe we can come to a compromise here, especially if Zidane stays. So hopefully he does. But it is big to get this type of player. He's fantastic and we really need him. He's been terrific. But that was the game. And where does it leave us? Well, we went to 9th, so we're not 10th anymore. Congrats. I mean, Aston Villa lost later in the day to Tottenham, which was obviously disappointing because Tottenham have gone further above us now. I think we're 4 or 5 points below them now, but they're in 6th. I was very close to saying our league season was over if we lost this game. Now we have to go face Liverpool and get a result to keep our faint Europe hopes alive. Hopefully we can do it and hopefully we can produce it. But obviously we have an international break now. So there's going to be some time off for some players, some not so much time off for other players, but at least keeps players refreshed for the games coming ahead. So hopefully we can do well and come back against the Liverpool game with some momentum after coming back from 3-0 down. So I've got a few questions here. Thank you again for asking me any questions. So at AFC Met on Twitter, you can ask me any questions on there. There's 2 here that are pretty similar. So from at Owen Merryman, and they ask Leno's worst performance in an Arsenal shirt, and one from regular contributor at Titanori, and he asked 2 questions, but the first one is about Leno. I've been a huge fan of Leno, but over the past 2 months he hasn't been good. What do you think will happen with him and his future at Arsenal? I think he will still be backed by Arteta, but Leno doesn't even seem to be good at shot stopping anymore. I think in the summer, and I know I'm going back to Emi Martinez and I'm sorry, but I think in the summer I would have been happy if Emi Martinez stayed and Leno had been sold. But ultimately, I was fine with either staying or either being sold. We couldn't keep both. I think his performances over the last couple of months have gone down, and I think it is a bit more concerning. But ultimately, he has had some great performances as well. I mean, he had his save against Burnley last week, which was a really important one. I mean, he had the save against Olympiacos this weekend. He does have the howler in him. I mean, the worst game he ever had, I think, was the Wolves game away in 18-19 when it was the end running and we were trying to go for top four and we basically bottled it and he done very bad that night, I remember. So it's not his worst performance. And again, I have some sympathy for him in terms of it does get deflected by Mari. So he's not really expecting it, but it still doesn't look very good. And ultimately, you want your keeper to save that. But we have so much to do in the summer that I don't think goalkeepers should be the biggest of our worries. I'm pretty sure you can survive with Leno for a good 2 to 3 seasons while Arsenal get back up there. And then ultimately, if Arsenal get back up there and Arsenal are doing well, get into the top 4, and then Leno is still not performing, then maybe you can have a conversation about a new keeper. But until then, I think it's fine. I think ultimately he is fine. I've got some questions here about our inconsistency. So one from @BillyJohnson101, and he asks, how annoying was the performance today? And from @Titanori again, his second question, why do you think we're so inconsistent with the various ways we play in a game? Will we solve this and push forward in the next 2 months? I have no idea why we are so inconsistent. I think just this team has a lot of errors in it. The first 30 minutes of this game was not like what we've seen from Arsenal in the last few months. It was very different. It was very poor. We just wasn't close to him at all. It was like what we had seen pre-Christmas. So hopefully it was just an anomaly. Maybe we were fatigued, but obviously we have been producing errors, and obviously we are the ones that keep shooting ourselves in the foot. We would be quite a decent team and get much more results if we didn't keep shooting ourselves in the foot. But we have had a lot of errors. The performance was annoying for the first 30 minutes, but I was satisfied with the response. It was one of the very best attacking performances we've had under Arteta after those 30 minutes, and ultimately that's all you can ask for, and it's something to build on. I think with Arsenal fans, you have to take in some positives from the game, something to look forward to, and hopefully you can learn from the bad things, but look at the positive things and think, okay, these are really good things that we can do in the future. And hopefully that's what we do, because ultimately I think the performance after those 3 goals we conceded, and it's funny to say, was very good. And I was pleased that we ended 3-3, even if we shouldn't have been 3-0 behind in terms of how bad we played. The performance was annoying as a whole, but ultimately I'm always someone that looks for the positives, and ultimately that's something that I look forward, and hopefully we can just keep producing those type of attacking performances. I mean, we were banging on the door so much. We kept the pressure on them. We didn't allow them into our half very much, especially in the second half. It was a very good performance, attacking wise. We just kept on them, the pressure. It felt like an old Arsenal game, both defensively and offensively. And that's only a good thing, because we used to be very good at attacking and very bad at defending. So hopefully we can combine our very good defensive stats this year and our very good attacking stats to create a really good team. And there's just one more question, again from @BillyJohnson101. Where is the biggest priority for Arsenal in the summer? CDM, right back, or striker? I think in terms of levels of priority, I think striker, I'm not looking for a striker. I'm looking for more of a forward who scores goals, because ultimately I think Aubameyang and Martinelli should be our strikers. If you can get a forward who scores goals as well to replace Lacazette potentially, then I think that should be a priority. Obviously the striker thing should only come if Lacazette gets sold. I'm not 100% sure he will be sold. I think CDM, the centre mid, is probably something we need. Our options are really thin there. I mean, you've got Xhaka, Partey and El Neni. Ceballos is going to go back to Madrid. I know Joe Willock will come back, but I don't really consider him something like that. Maitland-Niles, again, he will probably be sold. So that is a centre mid that we need, but we also need a creator as well. If Odegaard doesn't stay, we still need a creator. We can't rely on Smith Rowe for a whole season. We need more than one. 2 creators is fantastic. So I think that central area is probably priority, with a goal scoring forward, and then right back is probably the 3rd priority, because ultimately I know Bellerin hasn't been the best this season. Cedric has still got a lot to prove, even if he has been good at parts this season. But ultimately, if Bellerin stays and Cedric stays, then ultimately I'm fine with it. If we get other areas sorted, I would much rather a backup left back so Tierney doesn't have to play every game than having to prioritise a right back. Even if a right back is important, I just think it's less important compared to the other positions I named. But it's going to be an interesting summer, and obviously we don't know how much money Arsenal are going to have. We don't know how much COVID has affected them. We probably know it's going to be a lot. So Arsenal may not have much money this summer. They may have to rely on people being sold to buy players again. We need to see. But obviously, if we can get in the Champions League, we will have money. That will be the good thing. And hopefully we can produce that. We have a good chance with the draw we have. Obviously, we have to perform on the pitch. But ultimately, I'm probably going to be saying this in the coming months, but ultimately, that is the priority. So hopefully we can produce that. But thanks for all your questions. Again, you can ask me them on @AFCMet. But thank you for the podcast. That's the end of it. So there won't be a podcast this week because there's no Arsenal game. Maybe I'll mock something up, but we'll see. But thank you for joining me. Please leave a like on YouTube. Please leave a rating on iTunes, a rating on Spotify. Share it with your friends to get the podcast out there more. But until then, come on, you Gunners.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and De Hui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?